You're listening to The Poetry Table, a segment of the Gather Poets podcast where I take you inside conversations with bold and gutsy poets, exploring the craft choices, the questions, and the lived experiences that shape their poems. I'm your host, Maria Giesbrecht, a poet and the founder of Gather Poets, a writing community for poets worldwide. Well, welcome back to the Gather Poets podcast. Everyone listening, I have a very special guest today. Hi, JP. How are you feeling?
Hello.
Welcome to the
Happy to be
pod.
here.
JP, we have been writing together in community for a few weeks now, and we're going to publish your poem this coming Friday when everyone's listening. But before we begin, why don't you just start us off a little bit about maybe your journey towards this poem, or any sort of context that you think would be necessary to talk about before you read your poem to us.
Absolutely. Where to start? I'm one of those people that I find a lot of the times I can't, or maybe won't. I don't quite know the difference, but I have a hard time writing about things until I'm like ready in a way. And a lot of the times, that emotional preparedness doesn't show itself until you're kind of in the right space or in the right mentality or in the right workshop. That's why I love generative workshops, is because you never really know what fragment or memory or thing it's going to kind of pull out of you. So this poem is titled "Ode to My Ex's Ghost," and I chose to do an ode for multiple reasons. I think they are more reverent than like a dedication, and there's like, you could be talking about the saddest thing possible, which I'm talking about a very sad one, which I'll get into. But there's still like a reverence, overarching respect, and then like, I don't know, I think it's really just in the way the language commands the piece that kind of makes for some of those subtle differences. And I really like writing odes because I'm as a poet, most of us are very deep feelers, and I love the ability to just like gush about something, whether it be, something positive or something, tragic that happened, whatever. It's a great vehicle and like kind of rubric or platform for just getting some words on the page, especially when it's a complicated subject, which this is not based. I mean, it's an ode to my ex who is no longer with us. They committed suicide. And so, again, very complicated grief. And it's been a very hard thing to navigate, even just in life, because the emotions are so complex. But yeah, I didn't start writing about it until like 10 years after it happened. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
this
really
was only like the second or third piece that I've written about it. Yeah.
I agree with you that an ode is often like permission to raise something up, or to almost like find compassion or find empathy in unexpected places, and in like unexpected experiences and like situations and stuff. I think the title is really interesting because it's also like a kind of a play on what, like, when I read "Ode to My Ex's Ghost" and you tell me the context, I'm like, yes, there's so much weight to that. But I think it's a beautiful little like segue into the poem, because it doesn't really reveal itself until we continue reading throughout the poem. And so for folks listening right now, you're probably wondering, well, what is this poem? Let me hear it. To make all of this make sense, JP, would you please read your poem for us today?
Absolutely. I would be honored. So yes, this is called Ode to My Ex's Ghost, after the artist Peter de Potter. An ode is only as girthy as the author's love for its subject matter, so this poem will be thick and uncut. I don't think you can ever run out of things to say about your first. Mine wore suits threaded with silk ties and was always a gentleman, chivalrous to his grave. Loving someone does not mean keeping them alive. I couldn't imagine life without you, so I tried. T9 texts from snow barren Wisconsin, crooked hotel hideaways became someone unleavable.
Mm.
Certain light prompted peace to grind gritty teeth in our ears. I accept it's hard being complacent. Imagine being permanent, glacial, yet all current or vast boulder caught in my throat. Me, loving to choke on an idea that you're closer than imminent death. Rewash your face in dreams, lick effort clean from my hands. I'm at your side, keeping doubt in its corner and expectation shoveled under the bed. I accept our ecosystem is extinct. Glass house, not a greenhouse, and oxygen's finite. I accept that sacrifice sighs and comes like an angel. I accept that I will burn in heaven with you. I accept that pain finds us and lingers, though I still haven't accepted you leaving. Death grip on what I have left to give, woven into a fist.
Mm. Oh my god. Every time I hear it, it's like my subconscious clings to a new line, and this time you read it, cannot get over, "I accept that I will burn in heaven with you." Because I think what you're doing on a craft level is so smart, which is like the juxtaposition of the burning and then the heaven, is like, I accept that I will burn in hell with you is what the expected line would have been there. That's potentially what we would have expected from the writer.
Oh, yeah,
But you
for sure.
don't. And you don't. And every single time I think you're going somewhere different. And that's the beauty, I think, of a great poem is a poem that takes us somewhere unexpected. We are surprised when it turns into something different every single line. Um, Talk to me about the line, "I become someone unleavable," or "I became someone unleavable." I'm not sure if I'm remembering it correctly.
Yeah, no, you nailed it.
I love that
Yeah,
line.
became someone unleavable. It
Mm,
that is really more of just an admission to how I learned to love and how I used to view my role in a relationship or in a commitment or whatever as making room to change to fit, the other person as, to make our lives as like blended as possible. And obviously, like, I've learned that that is not the most healthy form of of connection and love over time. And that's just something you learn with age. But yeah, that line is just a hard statement to the things that we do, um, just to make someone want to be with us, and the effort sometimes that is often one-sided,
mhm,
or you know just kind of, if you've ever been in one of those relationships where it's like the emotional whiplash of just like a lot of the times they're there and then they'll just kind of disappear. That
really.
was very prominent in this situation, and as someone with abandonment issues, it was very hard. So it's like I wanted to note that there were times where I would, you know, think about my behavior and how it would affect the situation.
Mhm. I love it because I think that line will resonate. It really resonates with me. I went through a series of relationships in my late teens slash early 20s where I still struggle with this, but I have an anxious attachment style. So
Yeah.
I'm like constantly worried about someone leaving me all the time. And I very much relate to having abandonment issues as well. But I think that line there is like, it's so vulnerable and it's so true. And you're saying something that I think sometimes is hard to admit. Like, I know it's hard to admit to myself right now, even that, yeah, I don't want someone to leave me. And sometimes I think about the ways that I can act so that someone won't leave me. Um, but I
Yeah.
just, you're just saying it so like frankly and so openly. And a lot of people I think will resonate with that line in your poem, JP.
Thank you. Yeah, one thing I really challenge myself to do within my writing is to kind of just bear the flesh, be as
Mhm.
vulnerable as I can be. I find when I'm leaning into that, not only does it help my own internalized stigma, but it also allows me to just feel more free while I'm creating and crafting. So absolutely, that's I if you want to take it as a piece of advice, just get weird, be weird, let yourself just put it on paper because there's going to be somebody that will relate to it. We're at the point now that uh everyone is online with a personality, and so the more you can just be yourself, uh, just you got to do it, because I think
And
this also comes from the perspective of me too, like being a queer teen at Catholic school and in Boy Scouts and all this stuff. I really struggled with that, so getting to do that within my writing these days is really nurturing to like that inner child part of myself, as well as the part that needs to visit these things so I can continue to heal.
Mhm. Totally. I think it's such a special thing that the page does not judge us back. The page does not leave us. The page is always there waiting for us. Um, like a lot of my early challenges growing up in a family that was not calm, it was very chaotic. Um, a lot of that was parsed through in poetry because I didn't really have anyone to talk about it. And it sounds, JP, like maybe the page for you has become a way to like almost, like, parse through memory, and like you mentioned, it was 10 years after that happened that you were able to write about it, and I think sometimes, like, we need to take the time to, like, let these things, I wanna say marinate, but that's not, like, the right connotation at all. Like, sort of, like, sit
I
with it.
like it. Grief marinade.
Yeah, marinate in the grief. I'm sorry, that sounds insensitive. Um, But yeah, but then when we're ready, the page is always there, and, like, it kinda
Exactly.
meets us where we want it to be, and also, I think you're right, everyone is chronically online these days, and for better or for worse, and just you having the courage to be vulnerable in a poem also gives someone else the courage to do the same, and it's like a domino effect, I think. When one person feels that, the next person feels it, and so
Yeah.
on,
And
so
even like within workshops, just like I know for when, I just joined Gather this quarter, and I made sure to challenge myself to read the two first workshops that I was there, just
Mhm,
because that's something that still gives me pause and makes me feel uncomfortable to sit there and read a poem in front of, strangers. And
mhm,
it's I've never had a bad experience, so it's like it shouldn't make me nervous anymore, but it's just one of those things. It's the learning curve, and you just adapt as you grow older, and the more you push yourself to do the thing, the easier it just gets over time.
mm.
And I believe we talked about this pre-podcast, but I've been writing for 20 years, but I didn't identify as, like, a writer or a poet until 2024, which
Wow.
is bonkers. I know, and
So what
I
changed, JP? I'm curious.
so 20 years ago, I was experiencing a major mental health crisis. I had a really, really bad eating disorder, almost killed me. I had to be hospitalized, and I was just very, very hypersensitive, and I don't know, just I wrote to again, parse through my feelings and make sense of it,
Mhm,
because I just had a lot of like existentialism, and I did not see a future for myself.
mhm,
And so writing was one of those things that allowed me to express these feelings that I could not articulate in real life without
mhm,
someone wondering if they should like commit me to an institution, you know?
mm,
So
totally.
it's like, ooh, but it was my outlet, and I'm very grateful that I posted it all online because I still have access to all of that work, and
Wow.
being able to go back and read that and even edit some poems or pick lines out. Uh,
Yeah.
I did it with my editor when we first started working together, and they read a lot of it. And one of the kindest bits of feedback I've gotten is that I've always had like a poetic voice.
Mm,
And yeah, I think about it every day, something like that. But it was just
yeah.
such a kind thing,
Wow.
to know that my pieces, even back then, are unique enough to where my poetic voice was still coming through despite
Oh,
everything that I was dealing with, challenge-wise in real life.
yeah, that's so interesting. First of all, what a gift to receive those words. Like, that is
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. It's life-changing, really. Like,
Oh,
I
it was
think
so affirming.
yeah, like, hearing something like that from another person is it can be the thing that makes someone continue to write or not continue to write, you know? Um, but I think about, like I think it was another poet who told me a long time ago, we were talking about the voice, like, in poetry and how to hone your voice, and I remember saying to her, "I'm so scared that I'm just gonna sound like other poets if I read a bunch of other poets, like, am I just gonna start writing like them and I'm gonna sound
Mm,
like them?" And then she said something to me that has never left my mind, which is, "That's impossible." Like, you can't actually everything you write will bleed like, you will bleed onto the page whether you decide to or not. Like, you can't actually consciously decide to sound like anyone but yourself. Like, because you can try all you want, but it's inevitable that who you are, what you sound like, what you have lived through is going to come out onto the page, and I think it's interesting that, like, sometimes poets talk about, like, finding my voice. I think it's more of a returning to the voice that was always there, and it sounds like JP, that's exactly what you experienced, which was my poetic voice was there from day one. Now
yeah.
I'm gonna go back and excavate some of that stuff that, and parse through it, but, like, that was always there. That lifeline, that through line was always there. And
Exactly, and I think about, like, the gap in time that I wasn't writing, and obviously, I I'd like to think things happen for a reason, so I was just living my life and learning how to be an adult and going through, like, I was living in the Twin Cities, so I moved away from home and lived there for 11 years and was working, and I was doing retail management and stuff at Mall of America, but getting back into writing just really allowed me the permission to get back into a lot of my artistic hobbies
mm,
and, learn to separate, like, what I do physically from, things that bring me joy.
mm.
Yeah. It's
I
nice
think
when you can find the middle ground, but it's not always easy.
yeah. Yeah, that's such a good topic, actually. It's been on the top of my mind as well because I think some folks have, like, an idea that, um, becoming a full-time writer is like waking up in the morning with the sunshine on your face and going downstairs and making your cup of coffee and, like, writing for 10 hours a day, and I read a Substack article by Amy McNee, and she was talking about how the life of a writer is rarely ever just writing all day. Like, the life of a writer is, if you are even if you are lucky enough to be able to do some of the things that you love for work, it's like teaching, it's organizing, like facilitating workshops, and that is still it's still separate from our creative output as writers, you know. So
Oh, exactly.
I think you're onto something though with the separation, JP. I think it is important. Like, we have maybe it's a Venn diagram and there can be some overlap, but
Oh, absolutely. I
ultimately
I
I
don't like to think in black and whites, especially when the
yeah.
solution is so often in the gray, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I think like but really taking time to keep that, like, writing time sacred, I think is important, and, like, separating it as a time for healing, a time for parsing through things that we haven't, sort of dealt with, or, just, for play, just to get on the page and, like, have fun,
Yes.
like,
And see, that's a
keep
big
that.
thing that I incorporate into my writing practice is, like, if I'm free writing or
Mhm.
journaling or something, is I do love whimsy. I want it to be fun and a reflection of, you know, how I like to be. And so that's why even in this very, very sad poem, it starts off with, you know, dick innuendo.
Yeah, 100%.
And I know, and I wanted to keep people kind of guessing as to, like,
Mm,
what the heck is this going to be about? And that's why I loved the Ellen Bass workshop, about the long arm poem, because I feel like I write in that way a lot of the time
yeah.
and creating those layers, it's we've coined the 7-layer bean dip. It it has to be, perfect. So you
Mm,
get a little bit on your chip in every bite. And I think one thing I do while I'm writing is sometimes bring in too many layers or too
Mm,
many components, and that's been my main focus for
mm,
editing and refining, now that I'm 2 years into this. But again, going back to what you said too about how it's a vulnerable practice, um, that's how I felt too about starting to submit my work, and obviously, I knew there was going to be many rejections, but I've been absolutely floored by the amount of publications wanting to publish my work. It's been such
mhm.
an honor.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
it's so
but it
fun.
it
Your work is so great, JP, it really is. Like,
you
I mean that really, truly. You have such a unique like, now that I think about it, yeah, you write long-armed poems, and, I'm not opposed to an 8 or 9 layer dip, so if you want a couple extra layers, I'll take it, JP.
Oh my god, now we're getting into, like, cheesecake from Cheesecake Factory territory. It's just gonna
Yeah.
be that big.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
so rich, but I'm
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you and for the success that you've been having with your publishing. It
Thank
really is
you.
one day after another, right? And you're right, it's so many
Mhm.
rejections, but we continue to do the vulnerable thing of putting our work out there, and it finds homes, and it's really a miracle when you think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm about to hit 200 subs over the past, like, year and a half, 2 years, so I'm gonna go
go
through I know, I was really just machine especially because in the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing. The first poem
mhm,
I ever submitted it's a whole story, I'll have to tell you at another time, but I sent it to The Atlantic,
okay.
because I was like, "Oh, yeah, they pay $30,000, like, I'm a poet, I'm gonna make this my life now." Never heard back, of course, but it just was
Of
like
course.
that's how disillusioned I was as to the process of it all,
Mhm,
but that's another way that I love to learn is through
yeah,
experiential learning and trying and, you
doing it.
know, you're never gonna know unless you put yourself out there, and
Totally.
I struggled with that a lot, like, in my youth and as a teenager, and so being able to kind of reclaim that as an adult through art has been incredible.
Wow. I'm so glad. I think you're so right that we almost kind of need to learn these things just by doing. Like, we just have to submit to the New Yorker and think that they're gonna publish us. Like, we have to be delusional. That's kind of required, I think, as a
Yep.
poet. And sure, later on you learn that their acceptance rate is like 0, but, um, you didn't know that at the time, so who
Oh, no,
cares?
the poem I wrote was about, the last lighthouse keeper of the last, like, lighthouse that wasn't fully, owned by the Conservation Society yet, and it was in Boston. I was like, "Oh my god, that's where they're based, basically, like, they're gonna love it. They're gonna eat it up." But,
That's
yeah,
so
it's funny, like, I've taken my friend did a guest workshop, and it was actually called Delulu is the Salulu, and
mhm.
sometimes it really is, like, sometimes you just have to believe with such tenacity until it does become true, you know?
100%. Um, It reminds me of a conversation I had with my publicist, because the first time we ever had a meeting and I was deciding whether I wanted to hire her or not, I was like, "Listen, I'm a little bit delulu, like, can you get on that level with me?" And, she loved she loved what I said so much that she went and did an interview about her job as a publicist, and she, like, mentioned how I meant like, she's like, "One of my clients asked me to be delulu, and then I realized I was working in the right field." And
Exactly, though. It's
I just
like
thought it was funny.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I will say, like, I am so thankful for the poetry communities that exist online right now too, because I moved back to Kentucky,
Mhm,
from the Twin Cities, so went from very, like, metropolitan, lots of friends, lots of things to do to just being back where my family lives and being a lot
mhm,
more isolated, and so the, like, workshops and things that I participate in have really kept me not only artistically focused, but connected to other writers,
mhm,
learning so much about craft, and really just holding me down in a social
mhm.
aspect. Because as an adult, like they weren't wrong. It's harder to meet people and make
Yeah,
friends.
it is.
Because I'm like, what am I gonna do? Go to yarn club? Like I don't know. And
With
again, being
your
in
bundle.
Kentucky, there's not like a ton of like queer people where I am, and I don't know. It's definitely different vibes than Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Aw.
So again, that's all to say I'm very grateful for online writing communities and companionship. And I think that's another reason that kind of propels me to submit my work, um, is because it's my way of staying in conversation with, other writers that are like
Mhm,
currently doing it and currently putting themselves out there too. I love the idea of like modern poetics as a ever evolving conversation.
mhm,
And there's a lot of these. Obviously, we know there's so many magazines and journals popping up every year now, but when you
mhm.
find good ones or ones that resonate, it is just so refreshing to see what
Yeah,
people are doing these days, and people are just so talented. You wonder, wow, like how did you even conceptualize this?
yeah, and I think you're right, it's a way we can, like, all stay connected to each other, and it's a reminder that this writing thing is maybe we write in isolation, but the life of a writer does not have to be in isolation, that we can find connection amongst each other, and yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
just
Gather is a great reminder of that.
yeah, it really is. It has changed my life in more ways than one, obviously. But I'm just so grateful to like be able to chat with folks like you, JP, and other writers that we're publishing and Gather. It's not a small thing, I think, to be connecting with other people. It's kind of what we need right now, I think, more than ever.
Oh,
Um,
exactly, exactly.
So I just
Um,
wanna say, JP, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and I want to give you an opportunity to share with folks that do wanna connect with you online, if you have a website or an Instagram, or where's the best place for folks to reach out, say hi, read some of your work, and maybe just start a little conversation if you're open to it?
if I could swing it, I would be so off the grid, but it just wouldn't work, just the way things are. But I am on Instagram. It's just J Peepers, J Peep ERZ. But then
Okay,
I do have a website if you are interested in reading more of my work, or seeing what publications are forthcoming. It's www.thorn, which is my last name, THORN.jp. Great. I was so happy when I got that domain. I was like,
that's killer.
business, business, business.
That is
Yeah, so
so
that's where I keep it constantly updated. And yeah.
wonderful. Well, stay tuned for JP's poem. It will be published the Friday when this podcast goes live. And feel free to connect with JP either on Instagram or on their website. And just really looking forward to sharing your poem with the world, JP. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Poetry Table. If you're curious about Gather, feel free to find us on Instagram at Gather Poets, and we look forward to connecting.